Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped out of the mining complex. The twin suns of Kepler 442b cast harsh shadows across the rocky terrain, making the already difficult work even more exhausting. As the lead engineer for the human colony's mining operations, he spent most of his days deep underground, extracting rare minerals that would help sustain their growing settlement. The colony of New Harmony had been established only 2 years ago, making it one of humanity's newest outposts in this sector of the galaxy. Unlike the massive terraforming projects on other worlds, this planet was chosen for its rich mineral deposits rather than its habitability. The air was breathable, but thin. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's, and the temperature swung wildly between scorching days and freezing nights. Marcus had volunteered for this assignment not for glory or adventure, but because someone needed to do the hard work. Back on Earth, he had been a simple construction worker before joining the Colonial Engineering Corps. He understood that every bolt, every beam, and every extracted mineral meant the difference between a thriving human settlement and a failed colony. As he walked toward the main habitat domes, something caught his eye near the edge of the settlement. A small figure was crouched behind one of the storage containers, barely visible in the shadow cast by the metal structure. Marcus stopped and squinted, trying to make out what he was seeing. The figure was small, definitely not human, with pale blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the harsh sunlight. It appeared to be a child, though Marcus had never seen this species before. The creature was thin, almost skeletal, and its large dark eyes were fixed on the settlement's food processing facility. Marcus knew that several alien species had been documented in this system, but direct contact with any of them had been limited. The colonial administration's policy was to observe and avoid interference unless absolutely necessary. Most of the known species in this region were described as either highly advanced and uninterested in human contact, or primitive and potentially dangerous. The small alien creature shifted position, and Marcus could see it more clearly. It was definitely young, with the proportions and behavior of a child. Its clothes, if they could be called that, were little more than tattered rags. Most concerning was how thin it looked. Marcus had grown up in poverty on Earth, and recognized the signs of severe malnutrition when he saw them. The creature seemed to be watching the colonists as they went about their daily routines. When someone emerged from the food facility carrying supplies, the small alien's head would track their movement with intense focus. It was clearly hungry, possibly starving. Marcus faced a dilemma. The colonial administration's non-interference policy was clear, but this was a child who was obviously suffering. He thought about his own childhood, growing up in the slums of Detroit, where he had often gone to bed hungry. His mother had always told him that helping others when you could was what separated humans from animals. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then began walking slowly toward the storage containers. He didn't want to frighten the creature, but he also couldn't just walk away and leave a starving child to suffer. As he got closer, the alien youngling noticed him and immediately tensed, ready to flee. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away and crouched down to appear less threatening. The creature was even smaller than he had thought, probably no more than 3 feet tall. Its large dark eyes dominated a face that was surprisingly expressive, showing fear but also desperate hope. Marcus slowly reached into his work pack and pulled out his lunch. The colony's food wasn't fancy, just nutrient-rich protein bars, dried fruit, and a bottle of water. He had been planning to eat while reviewing the geological surveys for tomorrow's dig, but this seemed more important. He held up one of the protein bars and spoke in a soft, calm voice. He didn't expect the creature to understand English, but tone was often universal. "Hey there, little one. You look hungry. I've got some food here." The alien child's eyes fixed on the food with an intensity that was almost painful to witness. It was clearly starving, but also terrified. Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out on its face, the desperate need for food warring with the instinct to flee from the unknown. Marcus carefully placed the protein bar on the ground and then backed away several steps. He sat down on a nearby rock and waited, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. The alien child watched him for several long minutes, its large eyes darting between Marcus and the food. Finally, hunger won out over fear. The creature darted forward, grabbed the protein bar, and immediately retreated to its hiding spot behind the container. Marcus watched as it tore into the food with desperate efficiency, eating so fast that he worried it might make itself sick. When the protein bar was gone, the alien looked up at Marcus with an expression that might have been gratitude. Marcus smiled and held up the dried fruit. This time, the creature approached more slowly, still wary but no longer terrified. It took the food from his hand, its small fingers surprisingly warm and soft. Marcus spent the next hour sharing his entire lunch with the starving child. He learned that it could make soft chirping sounds that might have been its language, and that it was curious about human technology. When his communication device beeped with an incoming message, the alien jumped but didn't run away. The message was from his supervisor, asking about his location. Marcus realized he had been gone much longer than planned and would need to get back to work soon. He looked at the alien child, who was now sitting much closer to him, no longer hiding behind the container. The creature was clearly still weak from malnutrition, but the immediate desperation was gone. Marcus wished he could do more, but he knew that one meal was just the beginning. The child needed ongoing care and nutrition to recover properly. Marcus stood up slowly, not wanting to startle his new friend. The alien looked up at him with those large, expressive eyes, and he could swear there was understanding there. He pointed to himself and said, "Marcus," then pointed to the child with a questioning expression. The alien made a series of soft musical sounds that might have been its name. Marcus couldn't reproduce the sounds, but he nodded and smiled. "Nice to meet you, little one." He looked around to make sure they were still unobserved, then pulled out his personal food ration for the evening meal. It was against regulations to give colony resources to aliens, but these were his personal supplies. He handed the packet to the child, who accepted it with what appeared to be reverence. Marcus knew he should report this contact to the administration, but something held him back. The child hadn't shown any signs of aggression or disease. If anything, it seemed more civilized than many humans he had known. The way it had waited politely for permission to approach, the careful way it had taken food from his hand, and the obvious gratitude it had shown suggested intelligence and social awareness. As he prepared to leave, Marcus noticed something that made him pause. The alien child was looking toward the horizon with an expression of longing or sadness. Following its gaze, Marcus could see rocky hills in the distance, scarred by what looked like recent excavation or destruction. He wondered if that was where the child had come from, and what had happened to separate it from its family or community. The child seemed to sense his attention and looked back at him. For a moment, Marcus felt a strange connection, as if they shared an understanding that transcended species barriers. The child was alone. Just as Marcus often felt alone on this alien world far from Earth, Marcus made a decision that he knew would complicate his life but felt right in his heart. He pointed to the same time the next day, and then to himself, trying to communicate that he would return. The alien seemed to understand and made a sound that might have been agreement. As Marcus walked back toward the mining complex, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything. He had always followed regulations and procedures to the letter, but seeing the suffering of an innocent child had awakened something in him that was more important than rules. That evening, as he sat in his small quarters reviewing the day's mineral extraction reports, Marcus found his mind constantly returning to the alien child. He wondered about its species, its family, and what circumstances had led to it being alone and starving on the edge of human territory. The next morning, Marcus woke up early and packed extra food in his work supplies. He told himself he was just being prepared, but he knew he was planning to help the alien child again. As he walked to the mining complex, he took a detour past the storage containers where he had first encountered the creature. The child was there, waiting in the same spot. When it saw Marcus, it made excited, chirping sounds and approached without the fear it had shown the day before. Marcus smiled and knelt down, pulling out a nutrition bar and a packet of dried vegetables. The alien accepted the food gratefully, but Marcus noticed that it was eating more slowly this time, savoring each bite rather than consuming everything desperately. This suggested that the child had some food security now and wasn't facing immediate starvation. As they shared the meal, Marcus observed the alien more carefully. Its skin had a subtle iridescent quality that caught the light beautifully. Its movements were graceful and deliberate, suggesting natural agility. Most importantly, its behavior indicated high intelligence. It watched Marcus's actions carefully, seemed to understand cause and effect, and even attempted to mimic some of his gestures. Marcus found himself wondering about the child's species and their level of technological development. The tattered clothing suggested they had at least basic manufacturing capabilities, but the materials were unfamiliar. The child's behavior indicated social structures and possibly complex communication, but Marcus had no way to assess their overall civilization level. After the alien finished eating, it did something unexpected. It reached into the folds of its clothing and pulled out a small object, which it offered to Marcus. The object was a piece of carved stone, roughly the size of Marcus's palm, with intricate patterns etched into its surface. The craftsmanship was remarkable, showing artistic skill and attention to detail. Marcus accepted the gift with surprise and gratitude. He examined the carving closely, noting the mathematical precision of the patterns and the smooth finish of the stone. This was clearly the work of an intelligent, culturally sophisticated species, not primitive beings as some of the colonial administration reports had suggested. He wanted to give something in return but had nothing appropriate with him. Instead, he pulled out a simple metal tool from his work kit, a small wrench that he could spare. The alien examined it with fascination, clearly impressed by the precision manufacturing and the unfamiliar metal. This exchange marked a turning point in their relationship. What had started as simple charity had become a genuine friendship. Over the following days, Marcus continued to meet with the alien child, sharing food and small gifts. He began to learn some of its communication patterns and even taught it a few words of English. The child, whom Marcus had begun thinking of as Melody because of its musical vocalizations, proved to be remarkably intelligent. It learned human words quickly and seemed to understand complex concepts. It showed curiosity about human technology and culture, asking questions through gestures and simple words. Marcus found himself looking forward to these meetings more than anything else in his routine colonial life. Melody brought joy and wonder to his days that he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth. More importantly, he felt he was making a real difference in the life of an innocent being. But Marcus also knew that this situation couldn't continue indefinitely. Eventually, someone would notice his absences or discover his meetings with Melody. The colonial administration would have questions that he couldn't answer satisfactorily. He began to worry about what would happen to Melody if their friendship was discovered. His concerns proved justified when, on the 7th day of their meetings, Marcus noticed that Melody seemed agitated and kept looking toward the distant hills. The child made urgent sounds and gestures that Marcus couldn't interpret, but the meaning was clear. Something was wrong. As they shared their usual meal, Melody suddenly froze and stared past Marcus toward the horizon. Following its gaze, Marcus saw nothing at first, but then caught a glimpse of movement among the rocks. Something large was moving out there, still too distant to make out clearly. Melody began making rapid, urgent sounds and gesturing for Marcus to leave. The child's obvious fear was contagious, and Marcus felt his heart rate increase. Whatever was approaching, Melody was terrified of it. Marcus stood up and looked more carefully toward the movement in the distance. He could see several large shapes now, definitely approaching the settlement. They moved with purpose and coordination, suggesting intelligence rather than random animal behavior. Melody tugged at Marcus's clothing and continued making urgent sounds. The child was clearly trying to warn him about something, but Marcus couldn't understand what. Were these Melody's people coming to retrieve a lost child? Were they hostile forces that posed a threat to the human settlement? Marcus made a quick decision. He scooped up Melody and began moving toward the settlement, intending to get the child to safety and alert the colony's security forces. But Melody struggled in his arms and made distressed sounds, pointing back toward the approaching figures. Finally understanding that Melody wanted to go toward the approaching beings rather than away from them, Marcus set the child down. Melody immediately began running toward the distant figures, pausing only to look back at Marcus with an expression that seemed to be asking him to follow. Marcus felt torn between his duty to warn the colony and his concern for Melody's safety. The approaching figures were getting larger and more distinct, and he could see that they were definitely alien beings, much larger than Melody. If these were Melody's people, then the child would be returned to its family. If they were hostile, then both Melody and the human settlement were in danger. The decision was taken out of his hands when his communication device crackled to life with an urgent message from colony security. Long-range sensors had detected multiple large alien contacts approaching the settlement. All personnel were ordered to return to the main compound immediately for emergency protocols. Marcus looked at Melody one last time, memorizing the child's face and hoping that this wouldn't be the last time he saw his friend. Then he turned and ran toward the settlement, his mind racing with worries about what was coming and whether the kindness he had shown to a starving alien child had inadvertently put his entire colony in danger. The emergency alarm echoed across the settlement as Marcus ran toward the main compound. Behind him, he could hear the distinctive sound of heavy footsteps on rock, growing closer with each passing second. The alien figures that had been distant shapes on the horizon were now clearly visible and moving fast. Colony Administrator Sarah Rodriguez was already coordinating the emergency response when Marcus burst into the command center. Her face was grim as she studied the readings on the long-range sensors. Security Chief Thompson was barking orders to his team, preparing defensive positions around the perimeter of the settlement. "Chen, where have you been?" Rodriguez demanded without looking up from her displays. "We've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had turned off his communicator during his meetings with Melody to avoid interruptions, a violation of protocol that could have serious consequences. "I was checking the eastern mining shaft," he lied, knowing that the excuse wouldn't hold up under scrutiny, but hoping it would buy him time. Rodriguez finally looked at him, her expression suspicious. "The eastern shaft is automated. There was no scheduled maintenance today." Before Marcus could respond, Thompson interrupted with an urgent report. "Ma'am, the alien contacts are now within visual range. We count at least 6 large beings, approximately 8 feet tall and heavily built. They're moving in formation and appear to be armed." Marcus felt ice in his veins. 8 feet tall and armed. These weren't just Melody's worried family members looking for a lost child. These were warriors or soldiers, and they were heading straight for the human settlement. Through the command center's reinforced windows, Marcus could see the approaching aliens clearly now. They were massive, at least as tall as Thompson had reported, with powerful builds that spoke of physical strength far beyond human capabilities. Their skin was the same blue-gray color as Melody's, but darker and marked with what appeared to be ritual scarring or natural patterns. Each of the aliens carried weapons that looked both advanced and brutal. The devices were clearly technological rather than primitive, with energy signatures that the colony's sensors were picking up as potentially dangerous. The aliens moved with military precision, suggesting training and discipline. "My God," whispered Dr. Vance, the settlement's xenobiologist. "Look at the size of them. And those weapons. This could be a scouting force for a larger invasion." Rodriguez activated the settlement's defensive shields and emergency protocols. Blast doors sealed the main compound, while automated defenses came online. The colonists who couldn't reach the command center in time took shelter in reinforced buildings throughout the settlement. Marcus watched the approaching aliens with growing dread. In the lead was a figure that made the others look small by comparison. This alien was nearly 9 feet tall, with broader shoulders and more elaborate scarring or markings. Most concerning were the multiple weapons it carried and what appeared to be some kind of advanced armor. "That's their leader," Thompson observed, adjusting the magnification on the external cameras. "Look at how the others defer to it. And those weapons, I've never seen anything like them." Marcus stared at the images on the screen, his mind racing. The lead alien's face was partially visible, and there was something familiar about the features. The same large dark eyes, the same facial structure as Melody, but mature and hardened by what was clearly a lifetime of warfare. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "they're trying to establish contact. We're receiving transmissions on multiple frequencies, but the language is completely unknown." The computer can't find any matches in our xenolinguistic database. Rodriguez considered their options. Are they asking for our surrender? Round 4 Arming C. Unknown, ma'am. The emotional content of the transmissions seems urgent, but not necessarily hostile. It's almost like they're searching for something. Marcus felt a cold realization wash over him. They weren't searching for something. They were searching for someone. These massive, terrifying warriors were Melody's family, and they had come looking for their missing child. The lead alien suddenly stopped and raised what appeared to be a communication device. The sounds that emerged were loud enough to be heard even through the command center's reinforced walls. Marcus recognized the musical quality of the language, similar to Melody's vocalizations but deeper and more complex. They're broadcasting on all frequencies now, the communications officer reported. Still can't translate. But the emotional intensity is increasing. Through the external cameras, Marcus could see the lead alien scanning the settlement with what was clearly advanced sensing equipment. The other warriors had spread out in a defensive formation, but they weren't advancing. They appeared to be searching, rather than preparing for an assault. Dr. Vance was studying the alien readings with fascination and growing confusion. Sir? These biological scans are fascinating. The aliens show signs of high stress and emotional agitation, but not the aggressive patterns we'd expect from an attacking force. It's almost like they're worried about something. Marcus knew he had to speak up. The guilt of potentially causing this crisis was eating at him, and the knowledge that these beings were searching for Melody made his silence feel like betrayal. But admitting to unsanctioned alien contact would likely result in his immediate arrest and possibly charges of endangering the colony. The lead alien suddenly made a different sound, softer and more melodic. Marcus's heart nearly stopped as he recognized the pattern. It was the same series of sounds that Melody had made when introducing itself. The massive warrior was calling Melody's name. Sir, the communications officer said with surprise. That last transmission was directed specifically at the storage area where Chen found the unauthorized equipment readings last week. Rodriguez turned to Marcus with sharp attention. What unauthorized equipment readings? Marcus felt trapped. The storage area where the equipment readings had been detected was exactly where he had first encountered Melody. The colony's sensors must have picked up the alien child's biosignature during their meetings. Before he could answer, Thompson's security scanners detected new movement. Contact. Small figure moving from the storage area toward the alien formation. It appears to be a child? All eyes in the command center turned to the external cameras as the operators tracked the small figure running across the rocky ground toward the massive alien warriors. Even at this distance, Marcus could see that it was Melody, moving with obvious joy toward the beings that had seemed so threatening just moments before. The transformation in the alien formation was immediate and dramatic. The moment they saw the small figure approaching, their military precision dissolved into what could only be described as relief and celebration. The lead alien dropped its weapons and began running toward Melody with surprising speed for such a large being. The reunion was clearly visible on the external cameras. The massive alien scooped up the small child in what was obviously a warm embrace. The other warriors gathered around, their threatening postures replaced by protective concern. Marcus could see them examining Melody carefully, checking for injuries or signs of distress. Well, Dr. Vance said quietly, I don't think this is an invasion force. Rodriguez was staring at the displays with a mixture of relief and confusion. Then what are they? A search and rescue team? Marcus watched as the lead alien held Melody close and saw the child pointing toward the human settlement. Even without understanding their language, it was clear that Melody was telling its family about the humans who had helped it. The conversation among the aliens became more animated, with Melody clearly explaining something important. The child pulled out the metal tool that Marcus had given it and showed it to the adults. Their reaction was immediate interest, rather than alarm. Thompson lowered his weapon readiness status as it became clear that the aliens posed no immediate threat. Ma'am, their defensive formation has completely disbanded. Whatever that child is telling them, it seems to be calming them down. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Melody was safe with its family, which had been his primary concern. but he still didn't know what consequences his unauthorized contact might have for the colony or for himself. The lead alien was now looking directly toward the command center, holding Melody and listening intently to what the child was saying. Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling that Melody was describing their meetings in detail. Rodriguez made a decision. Open a channel. Let's see if we can establish proper communication. The communications officer began broadcasting on the frequencies the aliens had been using. Rodriguez spoke slowly and clearly into the microphone. Unknown alien visitors. This is Administrator Rodriguez of the human colony New Harmony. We wish to communicate with you peacefully. The response was immediate. The lead alien activated its own communication device and began speaking in its melodic language. While the words were incomprehensible, the tone seemed calm and diplomatic rather than threatening. Dr. Vance was frantically working at his xenolinguistics console, trying to find any patterns or commonalities that might allow for basic communication. I'm getting some recurring sound patterns, he reported. The computer is starting to build a preliminary translation matrix, but it will take time. Marcus watched as Melody continued its animated conversation with the adults. The child was clearly explaining something important, gesturing toward the settlement and making sounds that Marcus recognized from their time together. After several minutes of intense discussion among the aliens, the lead warrior made a decision. It set Melody down gently and began walking slowly toward the settlement's main entrance. The other aliens remained in position, clearly protective but no longer threatening. Single alien, approaching the main gate, Thompson reported. It's the leader, and it appears to be unarmed. Rodriguez considered the situation carefully. First contact with a new alien species was supposed to follow specific protocols established by the colonial administration. But those protocols assumed controlled conditions, not an emergency situation involving a lost child. Sir, the communications officer said with excitement, the translation matrix is starting to show results. The alien's most recent transmission appears to include words for gratitude and child safe. The lead alien reached the settlement's main entrance and stopped, clearly waiting for permission to proceed. Through the external speakers, it began speaking in its melodic language. But now the computer was providing rough translations. Greetings, human people, my child. Safe. Gratitude. Wish. Speak. Proper. Rodriguez looked around the command center at her senior staff. This was the kind of decision that could define humanity's relationship with an entirely new species. She could follow strict protocol and keep the aliens at a distance while waiting for instructions from Colonial Command. Or she could take the initiative and attempt direct diplomacy. Marcus found himself holding his breath as he waited for her decision. The fate of his friendship with Melody, and possibly the future of human-alien relations in this sector, hung in the balance. Dr. Vance provided the deciding factor. Ma'am, the biological readings show that the child was severely malnourished when it first appeared on our sensors a week ago. The improvement in its conditions suggests that someone in our colony provided assistance. If we help their child, they may view us as allies rather than threats. Rodriguez made her choice. Lower the blast shields and open the main gate. Security teams maintain ready positions but do not display weapons. Dr. Vance, you're with me for first contact. Thompson, keep your people alert but non-threatening. As the massive gate opened, Marcus felt his heart pounding. Everything he had done to help a hungry child was about to be revealed, along with the consequences of his unauthorized actions. The alien leader stepped through the gate with careful, respectful movements. Up close, it was even more impressive, with intelligent eyes and bearing that spoke of both strength and wisdom. Most importantly, its body language showed no aggression, only cautious hope. Rodriguez approached slowly, with Dr. Vance translating through the improving computer matrix. Welcome to New Harmony. I am Administrator Rodriguez. We understand that you were searching for your child. The alien's response came through the translator with increasing clarity. I am Hunt Leader Kirathak of the Mountain Clans. My daughter Silani has been missing for many days. She tells me that your people showed kindness to her when she was hungry and afraid. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he realized that Melody's real name was Silani, and that the terrifying warrior was her mother, not some military commander leading an invasion force. Rodriguez glanced at Dr. Vance, then back at the alien leader. Your daughter was helped by our people. We are glad she is safe and reunited with her family. Kirathok's next words sent a chill through the command center. Silani speaks of one human in particular, one who shared food many times and showed great kindness. She wishes to thank this person properly, according to our customs. It would be a great honor if this human would accept the gratitude of the mountain clans. Rodriguez turned to scan the room, her eyes eventually settling on Marcus. The expression on her face made it clear that she had figured out exactly who had been having unauthorized contact with the alien child. The silence in the command center was deafening as Rodriguez's gaze fixed on Marcus. He could see the pieces falling into place in her mind, the unauthorized equipment readings, his unexplained absences, and now the alien child's specific request to thank a human who had shown repeated kindness. Marcus felt his career flashing before his eyes. Unauthorized alien contact was a serious violation that could result in court-martial and imprisonment. At best, he would be expelled from the Colonial Engineering Corps and sent back to Earth in disgrace. At worst, he could be charged with endangering the entire colony. But before Rodriguez could speak, Dr. Vance interrupted with urgent excitement. Administrator, the translation matrix is providing more context. The alien leader is saying something about debts of honor and formal alliance protocols. This isn't just a simple thank you. This is something much more significant in their culture. Through the external speakers, Kirathok's voice continued, and the computer worked to translate her words. Among the mountain clans, the saving of a child creates bonds that span generations. The one who showed mercy to Silani has earned the eternal gratitude of our people. We would offer formal alliance and protection to your colony if you would accept this honor. Rodriguez's expression shifted from anger to amazement. Did she just offer us a military alliance? Dr. Vance was frantically cross-referencing cultural databases. Ma'am, if I'm reading this correctly, their society appears to be built around honor debts and kinship bonds. By helping their child, someone in our colony has essentially been adopted into their clan structure. Thompson was studying the alien warriors through the external cameras with new understanding. Those aren't invasion weapons they're carrying. That's ceremonial armor and formal diplomatic equipment. This is a state delegation, not a military force. Marcus realized that his simple act of sharing lunch with a hungry child had somehow triggered a first contact scenario that could change the entire trajectory of the human settlement. The irony wasn't lost on him that his violation of non-interference protocols might end up being the best thing that had ever happened to the colony. Rodriguez made a quick decision. Chen, step forward. Marcus felt his legs moving almost involuntarily as he approached the administrator. He had no choice but to face the consequences of his actions, whatever they might be. Is it true that you had unauthorized contact with the alien child? Rodriguez asked, in a formal tone that suggested this conversation was being recorded for official review. Marcus straightened his shoulders and looked her directly in the eye. Yes, ma'am. I encountered a starving child and provided food and basic care. I knew it was against regulations, but I couldn't watch a youngster suffer when I had the ability to help. Before Rodriguez could respond, Kirathok spoke again through the translation system. Is this the human who helped my daughter? Silani has told me of his great kindness and gentle spirit. She says he shared his own food many times and asked nothing in return. Dr. Vance looked up from his cultural analysis with growing excitement. Ma'am, according to their social structure, this human has become something like a clan brother through his actions. The alliance offer isn't just for our colony. It's specifically because of what Chen did. Rodriguez stared at Marcus for a long moment, clearly weighing the serious breach of protocol against the unprecedented diplomatic opportunity that had resulted. Finally, she turned back toward the communication system. Hunt leader Kirathok, the human who helped your daughter, is here with us. His name is Marcus Chen, and he would be honored to meet with you properly. The alien leader's response was immediate and enthusiastic. Then let us observe the proper ceremonies. Silani will guide the rituals, as is traditional when a child has been saved by the actions of another. Through the external cameras, they could see little Silani jumping up and down with obvious excitement. pointing toward the settlement entrance and chattering rapidly to her mother. The other alien warriors were beginning to unpack elaborate items from their traveling equipment, clearly preparing for some kind of formal ceremony. Rodriguez turned to Marcus with an expression that mixed exasperation with reluctant admiration. "Chen, you've managed to violate direct orders and accidentally establish humanity's first formal alliance in this sector. I'm not sure whether to arrest you or promote you." Dr. Vance was practically bouncing with scientific excitement. "Sir, this is extraordinary. Their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than ours, and their warriors suggest substantial military capabilities. An alliance with the mountain clans could provide security and technological exchange opportunities that would benefit the entire human colonial effort." Security Chief Thompson added his perspective. "Ma'am, our defensive capabilities are minimal. Having allies with advanced weapons and warrior traditions could be the difference between survival and failure for this colony." Rodriguez looked around the room at her senior staff, all of whom were nodding agreement despite the irregular circumstances that had led to this opportunity. Finally, she made her decision. "Chen, you're confined to quarters pending a full investigation of your unauthorized actions. However, you will first participate in whatever ceremony these aliens consider appropriate for the person who helped their child. Dr. Vance, prepare a full cultural analysis. Thompson, maintain security but keep your people in ceremonial rather than defensive positions." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. He wasn't being arrested immediately, but his future was still uncertain. More importantly, he was about to face a formal alien ceremony that he didn't understand and couldn't predict. The next few hours transformed the settlement into something resembling a diplomatic embassy. The Mountain Clan warriors, who had seemed so threatening from a distance, proved to be remarkably civilized and courteous guests. They worked with efficient precision to establish a formal meeting area using portable equipment that seemed almost magical in its sophistication. Dr. Vance served as cultural interpreter, working with the improving translation matrix to understand the significance of each ritual element. It became clear that the mountain clans took ceremony very seriously, and that Marcus was about to become the focus of something that had deep spiritual and social meaning for their people. Silani served as a bridge between the two species, chattering excitedly in both languages and helping to explain human customs to her family, while teaching Marcus proper protocols for alien interaction. The child's joy and enthusiasm were infectious, gradually easing the tension that had initially gripped the settlement. As evening approached, the formal ceremony began. Marcus found himself standing in a circle of alien warriors, each one massive and intimidating but treating him with obvious respect and warmth. Kirathok stood directly in front of him, no longer the terrifying figure she had seemed when approaching the settlement, but clearly a devoted mother and respected leader. Through the translation system, she began to speak in formal, ritual language. "Marcus Chen of the humans, you showed mercy to one who was lost and hungry. You asked nothing in return and gave freely from your own supplies. By the ancient laws of the mountain clans, you are now clan brother to Silani and honored guest of our people." She then produced an ornate metal armband, clearly crafted with the same skill that Marcus had seen in Silani's stone carving. The design was intricate and beautiful, incorporating symbols that seemed to represent mountains, stars, and flowing water. "This is the mark of clan brotherhood," Kirathok explained as she placed the armband on Marcus's arm. "You and your people are now under the protection of the mountain clans. Any who would harm you must answer to our warriors." Marcus felt the weight of the armband, both physical and metaphorical. He was holding the future of human-alien relations in this sector, all because he had shared his lunch with a hungry child. Silani stepped forward and made a small speech in her musical language, which the translator rendered as, "Thank you, clan brother Marcus, for being kind when I was scared and hungry. I will always remember your gentle spirit and generous heart." The ceremony concluded with the exchange of gifts and formal recognition of Marcus as an honorary member of the mountain clans. More importantly, Kirathok announced that the clans would establish a permanent embassy near the human settlement, creating ongoing opportunities for cultural and technological exchange. As the aliens began to prepare their camp for the night, Marcus found himself walking with Silani around the settlement perimeter. The The child was excited to show her new clan brother to the other members of her family, each of whom treated Marcus with warmth and respect. Through their broken but improving communication, Marcus learned about the Mountain Clan's society. They were a confederation of related tribes that controlled vast territories in the mountain regions of the planet's largest continent. Their technology was indeed more advanced than human capabilities, but they had chosen to maintain traditional social structures and customs. Most importantly, they were facing pressure from other alien species that viewed human expansion in the system as a potential threat. The Mountain Clan's alliance would provide not just protection for New Harmony, but also diplomatic legitimacy that could ease tensions with other species in the region. Dr. Vance was ecstatic as he compiled his cultural analysis. The Mountain Clans possessed advanced medical technology, sophisticated mining equipment, and detailed knowledge of planetary resources that could accelerate human development by decades. In return, they were interested in human manufacturing techniques and agricultural methods that could benefit their own people. Rodriguez called Marcus to a private meeting after the ceremony concluded. Her expression was serious but no longer angry. "Chen, your unauthorized actions could have resulted in disaster. If these aliens had been hostile, your contact might have triggered a conflict that would have destroyed this colony." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of her concerns. "I know, ma'am. I violated direct orders and put people at risk. I accept full responsibility for my actions." Rodriguez studied him for a long moment. "However, your actions also demonstrated the best qualities of humanity: compassion, selflessness, and the willingness to help those in need regardless of personal cost. These qualities appear to be highly valued by the Mountain Clans." She paused, clearly choosing her words carefully. "Colonial Command will need to review these events, but I'm recommending that you be formally appointed as our liaison to the Mountain Clans. Your relationship with Silani and her family makes you uniquely qualified for this role." Marcus felt stunned. Instead of court-martial and imprisonment, he was being offered a position that would make him one of the most important diplomatic figures in human space. Over the following weeks, the alliance with the Mountain Clans transformed New Harmony from a struggling mining outpost into a thriving diplomatic and trade center. Advanced alien technology improved mining efficiency while human innovations helped the clans expand their agricultural capabilities. Silani became a regular visitor to the settlement, serving as an informal ambassador and helping both species understand each other's cultures. Marcus found himself learning the Mountain Clan language while teaching English to alien visitors. The most significant development came when other alien species in the system began requesting meetings with the humans. The Mountain Clan's endorsement provided legitimacy that opened diplomatic channels throughout the region. Marcus often reflected on the series of events that had led to this transformation. A simple act of kindness to a hungry child had triggered a chain reaction that changed the course of human expansion in this part of the galaxy. He had learned that sometimes the most important rules were the unwritten ones that governed basic human decency. Kirathak had explained to him that the Mountain Clans evaluated other species not by their technology or military strength, but by how they treated those who were vulnerable and in need. Marcus's willingness to help Silani despite the risks had demonstrated that humans possess the moral character necessary for trusted alliance. 6 months after first contact, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the expanded settlement, watching as human and alien children played together in the compound's central area. Silani had convinced several other clan youngsters to visit, and they had quickly befriended the human children in the colony. The sight filled Marcus with profound satisfaction. The simple decision to share his lunch with a starving child had created possibilities that none of them could have imagined. It had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their ambition, but their capacity for compassion and their willingness to help others regardless of species or circumstances. Rodriguez joined him at the observation window, watching the mixed group of children with obvious pride. "You know, Chen, when I write the official report of first contact, the colonial administration is going to have a hard time believing that it all started with you feeding a hungry alien child." Marcus smiled as he watched Silani, teaching human children how to create the intricate stone carvings that were traditional in her culture. "Sometimes the most important victories come from the smallest acts of kindness, ma'am. I just shared my lunch. Everything else followed from that." As the twin suns set over New Harmony, casting the settlement in golden light, Marcus reflected on how different his life had become. He had started as a simple mining engineer following orders and regulations. Now he was a diplomatic liaison working to build bridges between species. All because he had chosen compassion over compliance when faced with a child suffering. The armband on his arm caught the light, its intricate patterns seeming to glow with their own inner fire. It represented not just his honorary membership in the mountain clans, but the proof that humanity's greatest diplomatic tool wasn't their weapons or their technology, but their fundamental decency and willingness to help those in need. In the distance, the mountain clan's embassy buildings rose against the horizon, a permanent symbol of the alliance that had grown from a single act of kindness. Marcus knew that historians would study these events for generations, trying to understand how a chance encounter between a human and an alien child had reshaped the balance of power in an entire star system. But Marcus understood that the real lesson was much simpler. When faced with suffering, humans chose to help. When offered the chance to show kindness, they gave freely without expecting anything in return. And sometimes, those simple acts of human decency changed everything.